Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Mack Maloney's Military Style Show here on the Distant Thunder Radio Network. This is Mack Maloney. We have a very big show for you tonight, but let me introduce the posse, okay? Sorry, girls, no Juan-Juan again tonight. He's out on a secret mission. I can hear the sighs and the cries all over the state, if not the entire country. No Juan-Juan tonight, but we'll try to make up for it, though. They're big shoes to fill, let's say. Sitting in for him, however, in the studio, our brand new studio up here in Exeter, New Hampshire, Al Rinaldo, UFO mechanic. Al Rinaldo is here.
Good evening, Mac.
And also on the phone line from his undisclosed location, I believe, the very famous Coco is here. Commander Cobra in the house.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Okay. Okay, everything okay with you there, Cobb? I should explain that Juan-Juan is still on his own secret mission. So secret he won't even tell us what it is.
That's correct.
So
it's a little scary.
Yeah, but, right. Very scary, actually. But, you know, when he comes back, I'm sure he'll give us...
But I know it's why he's been gone. The Patriots have been doing well. Not that I follow the sport, but his absence has... Maybe he's supporting that effort with Mr. Brady, his idol.
Well, his idol, I think, isn't quite, you know... His idol is about 10% of it. What should we call him? Well, maybe that's another show, but he adores him. His idolatry.
His precious. It's his precious.
His
he
precious.
is kind of like Gollum. Yeah. He's kind of like Gollum when you start talking about Brady.
His precious. That's the word I was going for. All right. Thank you, Cope. Anyway, when he comes back, I'm sure he'll have a detailed account of his secret mission and where he was all this time. But anyway, we plow on. So... the interesting show tonight, we're going to be talking to Marc D'Antonio, who we caught up with at the Leominster UFO Conference in the fall.
That's correction there, sir. That is the Greater New England UFO Conference.
Oh, right. Okay.
In Leominster.
Okay. All right. In Leominster. Okay.
It's very important we get that right.
That's right.
Beautiful downtown Leominster.
Yeah.
There you go.
Really just, I guess I missed the memo on that, or I forgot I read it. Anyway, so we met him there, and he did this fascinating. He's an interesting guy. He does a whole bunch of things. His bio was great. In fact, Chloe, you can probably tell people his bio better than me, but he did this presentation where he's like a professor, a college professor, and he took what looked like a roll of toilet paper, but it wasn't. It was just a roll of paper. And he started at one end of this sizable auditorium, and he walked his way around the entire auditorium and stopping at places in this roll of paper, very important points in, let's say, evolution. Okay, so and he went all the way around the auditorium, all the way around, and then when he got to the end, he said, "And this little piece is how long humans have been around." Okay,
yeah.
And you really got this idea of, you know, you had a visualization of how we have not been on this planet more than like a few milliseconds compared to everything else, you know?
And how much destruction we've caused.
Right.
Yeah.
It took us very little time to really screw it up, but very good presentation. Good guy. How did you meet him, Cope?
He heard on my show. He popped into my show.
Plug the show. What's the name of the show? Go ahead.
It's Task Force Griffin with Commander Cobra, and he popped in on that show when we started to chit-chat, and then he has a YouTube channel where he does kind of, I would not going to say deep space, but where some folks will look at just like the evening sky and look for the aerial phenomenon of whatever that is. Then you have other folks that look like at near items, sort of the moon and some of the things that are close by. He actually is an astronomer by trade. And he has an observatory, and then he'll go on and he'll have a show where they'll discuss what's happening in the sky, and they'll look at things like crab nebulas and things like that he can see that night. And it's beautiful, the imagery that comes up on his YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. And then folks can talk in the chat room. Well, he's had me on as kind of like a side commentary guest where he does this with folks, and you're kind of just chit-chatting, and you're looking at the stars and the skies and the near heavenly bodies, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And he's very, very, very smart. He's also very entertaining. He can get a lot of information out in a way that you just, you know, it's easy to understand. Mm-hmm. And he's a really fun guy. He's also quite a model maker. He has a small business that he makes scale, very detailed models that have been used in movies, and they've been used for research. He's a very interesting character.
Mm-hmm. Al, do you have a feeling that Cobra's asking for a raise? I do.
There's a lot going on there.
Or he might jump, He might jump ship.
Hey, he's got his own show.
He's got his own show.
I have my own show because of Mac, which got a tribute on New Year's Eve.
Oh, really? Yeah, from what kind of a tribute?
I was asked
they could be very
how
nasty.
I got started in this business because my guest thought I was very polished, and he said, "Well, how'd you get started?" And I said, "Well, I got started because of my writer friend and broadcaster Mack Maloney." And
Polished.
I don't think I've ever been called polished.
No, never, ever.
I've been accused of polishing, but I've never,
been called Polish, but not polished.
On the legal documents, they say complexion medium. Now, I want to know what that. Definition of medium. What
medium
is that?
To what?
I'm not quite
white.
I'm not quite white. So
wow.
Which is fine. Yeah, I mean, I've been called worse. Trust me. So, but medium complexion.
Huh. Really?
With the blue eyes. Just
was that on your birth certificate? You mean, or
no? Weapons.
I see.
Handgun permits and things.
I get it. Okay, well,
those type of things.
I hate to say it, but these days skin color is very important in those things.
Oh yeah.
Wow. Yikes! What
I guess I would be a fair.
I was going to say, he anticipated what I would be fair too. I think. Yeah.
Well, I think the Sicilian,
Yeah, right.
commentary.
Well, I've got a quarter Sicilian blood in me, but it obviously did make it to the skin tone.
Oh, okay. Wow. All right.
I was lucky it did, but because I can go out and lay in the sun.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
In the summer, it works out very
Us
well.
Irish guys, we got to go with umbrellas on our heads.
You get too close to a light bulb, you're in trouble.
You burn.
Yeah, you burn is right. So anyway. Well, okay, that was interesting. So you gave me a shout-out on New Year's Eve. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, yeah. Very well received. And talked about Barbara With and Mr. Stanley and Mr. Schratt, some of the guests that have been on both our shows in some cases. So it was a kind of a surprise show. I was I actually was able to tape it during the week, and it got thrown up, and I was able to sit in the chat room. And I guess the best part was Mrs. Cobra got to listen to the show, and I was sitting next to her, and she went to bed early after 45 minutes and said, this doesn't make very much sense to me. And
okay. All right. Okay. Everyone's a critic, I guess.
So it's successful if the wife doesn't get it. Okay?
Yeah, or if unsuccessful if you put the wife to sleep.
I can't even take part in a statement like that. So
anyway, okay, Cobra. So putting wives to sleep across the country, it sounds like, right?
Yeah. Lucky me.
Okay. So anyway, Mark will be on in a little while, and then we're going to be talking to Switchblade and Emily M. They're going to do a special presentation tonight. They went back down to Mothman, Point Pleasant, West Virginia, where people who have been following this for the past year, we've talked a lot about Mothman, and I'll have them go through the brief history of it. But, just a lot of weird events happening down in this small town in West Virginia, right across the river from Ohio. People seeing this huge flying humanoid thing, crazy story. Lots of witnesses, lots of really good, solid evidence that something very strange was going on down there. And then kind of at the tail end of this whole year or so of these weird things happening, a bridge between West Virginia and Ohio collapsed. 43 people were killed, okay? And a lot of people just thought, wow, it's connected, because everything had been so strange. People had seen, looked like kind of government agents on the bridge the night before. People had spot Mothman on top of it. Richard, what's his name, did a great movie on it.
Yeah, Richard Gere.
Yeah. I mean, really pretty good movie, So anyway, they had a ceremony to honor the 50 years since the bridge collapsed, and M and Switch went down to it. So they're going to report on that and talk to people who were on the bridge and stuff like that. So
M and Switch also, I mean, they kind of rose to the level of subject matter experts on that event and the subsequent research around it. Didn't Switch give a presentation?
Sure did. Yep. The last time they had the Mothman Festival down there, which is quickly growing into like the coolest festival apparently, because they say it's not all these kind of lectures and stuff like this. They have bands, they have like food courts and all this stuff. They have lots of stuff that you can go into, and a lot of the businesses down there have some kind of Mothman connection, Mothman ice cream and stuff like that. And they had like 10,000 people down there last time. When we first started to Switchblade, they were getting like about 3 or 4. But people really like it, so we would love to do the show down there sometime for the week.
Interesting.
That'd be funny. We get the Winnebago one to go down. So anyway, anything new with you there, Kobe?
No, just been enjoying the seasonal temperatures here of the New England territories. It's been a really sporty couple weeks with that.
Right. We should tell
the
people
baby goats are doing very well.
The baby goats, hopefully.
The baby goats are doing well.
Okay, all right. You still breastfeeding them, or what's happening there?
They've been on the bottle for a while.
Oh, who hasn't?
That's been a lot more successful.
Okay, they're doing well.
They're doing well.
How many are there? 3 of them?
We have 2 that are with us all the time, and I really think it's our friend that actually raises them. So I'm going to chip in and with a couple other folks. We're going to get these goats cable TV or jigsaw puzzles because you're not supposed to be having babies in the winter. We get these kids onto something else down there. No pun intended.
What's he talking about, Al? Do you have any idea?
Wow.
We're talking
animal husbandry here.
Okay.
I don't know
that.
They're not supposed to do it.
They're not supposed to be having the babies in the winter. They're supposed to be having the babies in the spring. So we.
What is the gestation period for a baby goat?
I believe it's someplace around the neighborhood of 2 to 3 months. It's about a 90 to a 95.
Why don't you check on what the goats are doing 3 months ago?
Yeah,
I know what they're doing.
Yeah,
we all do.
That's right, exactly. So what I'm meaning is we're going to get some kind of other diversion going on in their lives. But Kathy has. Mrs. Cobra has delivered 3 sets of babies almost every 2 weeks since the end of November.
What, the goats have a party in September or something? They must have.
Boy, you better talk to the male goats here.
If they can talk, they might be out of breath.
They're keeping awful busy.
Wow.
Maybe it's the cold.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Wow. Who knew that we would learn about goats being fooled into not having sex? I mean... You'll get that's a lawsuit someday. Who knows? So, Cobra, okay, so we should tell people that up here in New England during this time period in which we're recording the show, it snowed about 6 inches on Christmas Day, okay, and now we're early into January, and the temperature has not gone, I think, over 24 or something, and it's been in the single digits for almost the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, and you can double that and add 2 for my snowfall up here.
Wow. Well, last year we didn't have this kind of weather. It was kind of more of warm and rain and stuff like that. But here we go again.
Blame it on global warming.
Yes, right. Yeah, blame it on something. But, and I had to, and the wind wasn't blowing very well on that Christmas Day storm because, as you know, Al is my neighbor, and when we have a real storm, the snow doesn't blow onto my driveway. It just blows right across the street onto your driveway, as it turns out.
As long as it's windy, no matter how much snow we get, he can walk out with a brush, maybe, if he even needs a brush to clean the windows of his car. I have a 6-foot drift on the end of my driveway, and he's sitting in his window looking out at me and waving.
No, that's not true.
Because he doesn't have...
with a fine scotch in his hand.
Right.
No.
I mean, we have gravel driveways because they won't allow pavement
on
where
this
we live.
Island that we live on.
So... You try. First of all, you take a snowblower out there. Good luck to you.
Yeah, it's like shrapnel.
Yeah, it's like a machine gun. Right. And I look out there, and I'm out there fighting this snowblower, and he's got nothing. And I mean nothing.
But I'm not at the window waving at you because it pains me to see other people at hard labor.
He goes to another part of the house, puts on his giant
he goes in the
TV,
back. He goes into his office and closes
scotch.
the door.
Yeah. Put on the headphones and figure he'll be done soon.
The previous owners of the
house
calls
the police and says with a noise complaint of the neighbor that's
with the snowblower,
shooting rocks with the snowblower and disturbing you,
and the barking dog.
Yeah. I when we had we're really going off center here, but when we first moved there, the first winter we were there, Lois and I. We had the 4 blizzards in a row, and there was 16 feet of snow. And I have a picture of you coming down your driveway with the snowblower, but the snow is like 3 or 4 feet over your head.
Yeah.
So I sent it to someone in the publishing biz in Wisconsin. Okay. Just saying, hey, this was like, and it became a meme out there, whatever that is. People started going on. So you were like famous there for a while.
Well, I'll tell you.
This is what it's like in New England.
It was so deep. I couldn't use the snowblower to throw the snow over the top anymore. I had to shoot it further up the driveway and then pack it into a place I used to use for a parking area.
Yeah.
The machine just couldn't take anymore.
I hear you're good at packing it in now.
Come on, man. That's
wow.
unwarranted.
We got to talk to the goats about that.
Yeah, you ain't kidding. So anyway, we have a new sound effect. I should have used it. All right, so why don't we do this? Why don't we take a commercial break now? And Cobra, you're going to be with us, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then when we come back, hopefully we can connect with Marc D'Antonio. D'Antonio, is that how we pronounce his last name?
D'Antonio.
D'Antonio. Oh, I see. Okay, his Skype name doesn't have the apostrophe.
You have to pay extra for that on Skype. You don't want to do that.
There you go.
So who's the goat's nanny? We got a nanny goat here?
Who's the goat's nanny? And what is it? Is that the mother goat or the goat that takes care of the goats? The nanny goat.
I guess I would be the nanny goat because Mrs. Cobra is the mommy goat right now. So
wow. So
it goes right into that whole sensitive profile on me.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I could see. Hey, send me a picture. He had them. He was cuddling them like newborn babes. Yeah.
Hey.
Nobody's
going to eat these goats, right? They're
That's
pets.
correct.
You don't know that. You don't know that.
I thought I'd ask.
Anyway, okay.
And we're not going down the avenue that you tried to drive down, Mac. We're going to back out of that alley pretty quick.
There's a place near where I lived that these people had a sign out for years that said "Goat Bucks," and I swear to God, I drove by there one day. I'm like, what kind of money is that? And then I realized, I'm like, wow, I'm a Maroon. Wow. I'm an idiot. I'm thinking this is for real.
Or a city guy.
Yeah, there you go.
I bet you 90% of our audience are going, goat bucks. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Is that like Bitcoin?
Like what?
Bitcoin.
Is that like Bitcoin? Goat bucks? That could be the next big thing.
Yeah, if you want to invest
in goat bucks.
Yeah.
So on that note, okay, we've talked about goat sex and economics here tonight, okay, and the weather,
all right,
and so on,
and the Patriots,
okay, and Juan-Juan's secret, yeah. So we
and the precious,
and the precious.
Now, real quick, I read a thing in the Boston paper the other day said something to the effect of they do the report card on the Patriots for the weekend,
okay,
and when they said Gronkowski was absent.
Yep.
So maybe Juan-Juan and him were both absent.
That could be.
Maybe he was partying with the Gronk.
That could be.
Or a secret mission with the Gronk.
Yeah. Or they asked them, they requested they didn't come to the stadium on Sunday. And Juan-Juan, he has so many tentacles into the Patriots, you'd be surprised. But he's he as you say, he follows his idol, and no matter what's going on, he's somehow involved. Apparently, who knows?
It's precious.
There you go. All right. Thank you very much, Cobra. So why don't we take a commercial break now? And when we come back, our friend Marc D'Antonio. Welcome back, everyone, to Mack Maloney's Military Show here on the Distant Thunder Radio Network. This is Mack Maloney. In the studio with us tonight, taking Juan-Juan's chair, if not his shoes, UFO mechanic Al Ronaldo.
Good evening, everyone.
In the house. Also, from the undisclosed location up there in Maine. I know I sound bored saying this, but...
You've been to the compound.
I've been to the compound several times.
Al's been to the compound.
Yes, I have.
Yes, right. And we survived, right? We got out. So, he's up there. It's Coco. They call him Coco on the streets.
A lot of acreage up there.
There you go, yes. Commander Cobra. Also in the virtual house. Thank you. So, why don't we get our guest on right away instead of any pitter-patter, okay? Because this guy is a very famous guy in the UFO community. You see him on TV. He's a celebrity.
He's also big in cable.
Big in cable, okay.
Don't want to go there. Just want to throw that out. He's big in cable.
He and Comcast have had several encounters, let's say, okay?
To a positive effect.
Oh, I should never have told that story.
Marc D'Antonio. Am I saying it right? Am I saying it right?
No, but that's okay. I mean, you threw in the Comcast thing, so it's fine.
What is it? How do you say, Al, you're of this faith? How would you pronounce that? D'Antonio?
There you go.
Yeah, D'Antonio would be...
What did I say? D'Antonio?
Dan Antonio, which is what sometimes the telemarketers say that, and I just hang up on them. But, I would never hang up on you.
Oh, yes.
Because Commander vouches for you. So
you've only been here for a minute. Don't be so hasty. You might wind up... Anyway.
The night is young.
So let's cut right to the chase here. Now, Mark, you've been on TV. You're someone who the TV networks go to as an expert, like on UFOs and kind of not the really fringe stuff, kind of more scientific. And how do they get into? How many times have you been on TV? Do you know?
Wow. I mean, I've been on probably, and this is, I always have trouble talking about myself, but
that's okay.
Thanks. But so bear with me. I've been on probably 10 different networks, and there's 2 series that I'm associated with now. The NASA's Unexplained Files series. I've been with them since season 1, and they're up into season 4 now, I believe. And What on Earth also found me. And I've been with them since season 2.
How do they find you? How do they find you? I mean, is it the more you're out there, the more they call?
Well, part of it is that when I do these high-profile UFO cases, I'm no nonsense. I will sit there and say, well, look, everyone that you are talking to says these were UFOs, but I'm analyzing the data, and I'm really hard on this data.
So let me just translate that from science speak. He'll suck all the fun right out of the room.
Wow.
10
seconds,
not
suck
exactly.
your heart on. Wow.
Hey,
welcome to 2018, folks.
Commander knows from experience that I don't suck all the fun out of the room. I put a lot of fun into the room because he saw me talk.
It's very, very true.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think that we don't have to go into the strange and unbelievable realm to have a good, logical, scientific discussion about the reality of extraterrestrial visitation to this planet.
Sure. So
we don't need to go down that path. I mean, it can be here. It is here, in my view.
Right.
So we don't have to go to the fanatical stuff.
But they go to you because you kind of know how to do it on TV, if you know what I mean. Right?
Well, I'm a voice of reason, I think.
No, I mean, but you present yourself very well. Like when we saw the lecture, it was like, you're not just some guy off the street who, had a UFO land in his backyard and he's, written a book about it,
Well, that's true. I do. I mean, I've been performing since I was 12, so I guess,
all right.
I was a magician for many years before I was a UFO investigator. So, doing a magic show is a little bit harder than doing a TV show where they can say, "You want to try that again?"
Yeah, right.
If you can't say that to the audience. I'm going to just do that trick again, okay?
Yeah, right,
And they say, "Boo,"
Yeah. Can I tell you a quick story? Very quick story about magicians. Remember, who was the guy with the long hair? He was like the hippie magician.
Doug Henning.
Doug Henning. Okay, so long time ago when he was hot, right? Someone I knew had a son who, was having health issues. So they said, any way you can get us in to see Doug Henning, right? So I write a note to them, and they come back. They said, sure. Meet us on the side door. There's something's connected in you. Meet us on the side door, 6 o'clock, and go in, right? And then you'll meet his greeter, and that's the guy who's going to take care of you after the show's over. So we go, okay.
Yeah.
So me and the kid go in, and as we go in, Doug Henning walks right by us. Right? And then down, and then the handler comes up and he goes, who was that? Like that. And we realized it wasn't Doug Henning. It was his double. Because that's how he was doing these, be in this cage and suddenly be in this cage down there. He's using a double. And this guy, because when we finally met Doug Henning later on in his Winnebago after the show, he was like, hugging everyone and kissing everyone. He was very touchy-feely. This guy kind of blew us off.
I never would have guessed.
Yeah, that's how he did a lot of the... No, but he was a nice...
So who is better looking, the double or...
He looked exactly like him. And if you remember Doug Henning, he was kind of like a small guy. He had real long hair, and then he had like a hippie mustache in a way, and he was kind of a transcendental meditation guy. Nice guy. He couldn't have been better, too. The people we brought him in to see and stuff like that. He was very gracious.
Very nice.
Yeah, nice guy.
My cousin actually dated him for a time.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Your cousin used to date him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doug Henning.
Did you refer to him as a magic man or anything like that?
Nah, I don't know those stories. That would be too much information for me. But the curious thing about Doug Henning is he actually disappeared into obscurity when he went and started. I think it was India where he actually disappeared to learn from some yogis.
Yes.
And he ended up in that world for the remainder of his time. I don't even know if he's still alive.
No, he died. Yeah, that's weird. He died kind of a young guy too. He died about 20 years ago. But his show was, just sitting there and watching it was like fantastic. He was using doubles and shit, but then he was doing stuff that would people up, with a deck of cards with someone from the audience and stuff, and some of the stuff he was doing. I was like, how do you do that? So anyway, so listen. So do you ever get like stage fright? When you're on when the camera's rolling.
No, I mean, and the reason I don't think is because having a history of performing on stage with a live audience and not having the luxury of letting anything go wrong, being on camera turns out to be just a piece of cake compared to that. Okay, the pressure is so different. There's no worries. Everything can be done again. And I often will. Say, okay, we got to stop and do that again because I didn't really phrase that the way I thought I could phrase it. Okay. And they do, and they're gracious about it. So,
And what do you sit in, like a hotel room somewhere? They rent some kind of a little studio space for the day or something?
Well, actually, my company is FX Models, and it's a visual effects studio. So they come here, and my office is made up to look like a World War II battleship, complete with a hatch door.
Cool. Wow.
Very cool. Yeah.
Very cool.
Oops, sorry.
And they got rivets on the walls. They got real portholes for windows from a destroyer. I mean, so when they come in, when they finish closing their mouths and going, looking around, okay, and they see that, there's rust painted on the walls. I mean, it looks like really rusty steel walls, with the bright glossy gray paint. And it's all an effect. It's all a studio effect. So they see that, and they first look around, going, oh, and of course they're from London, so they go, Mark, oh my God, this is such a where did we stop with something like this? It's like, well,
it's almost like it's real.
Camera.
So why a battleship? Why a battleship?
I was going to go with like a starship at one point, but I've done work for the Navy since 1994 as a contractor.
Okay, sure.
Okay, FX Models ended up being a Navy contractor, so
nice.
I wanted to make it a submarine office because I focus on the submarine Navy, but I did look into making these spherical or cylindrical wall sections. Problem with that was the space I was putting my office in was too small for that. And I couldn't get the proper diameter at all. And so I'd have to scale it down, which is fine.
Yep.
Plus, it's really hard to find the portholes for a submarine.
You wouldn't have. You're right. You wouldn't have portholes at all. Exactly.
Because they're really hard to find.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could have done the front windows from the sea view,
That's the opposite of sucking the funny out.
We did an 8-foot sea view, actually, a model of an 8-foot sea view.
See man, that's a great show, man. That's not out there. That's not out there. That's one of those shows that they don't do in reruns for some reason.
Yeah, well, you can go watch it on some of these streaming sites.
Oh yeah, right. I used to watch that. That was like one of my top 5 shows, man. Had to watch
the original movie with
Mac.
Bob
One of
Eden.
these nights, if you get Mark to come back on, he'll take you through as a tour on it. One of the funniest things is when he's walking with the computer and he takes you through it, and you're looking at the ship, and it's amazing. The ship. Then you open the door and you'll pop out to the other part of it, and then you'll come up against his washer and dryer.
Yeah.
So it's
exactly.
it's really cool. It's really quite cool.
Yeah. But
first you go through the drone fleet. I mean, I've got a fleet of drones outside the office that you see first, and then that's my shipping area there, and then the shop is next. So I have to keep everything separated because I have so many computers in here that I can't let the dust get to them. Wow. But I do have a dust reclamation system in the office. So that if we're doing anything and all the doors are open and it's nice out, I turn on that dust machine and it just sucks everything out. But it's a very nice one. It looks like it's part of the decor, actually.
All right. What'd you say? It's a dirt reclamation?
Dust reclaimer. Basically, it just shovels the dirt, dust out of the air.
Yeah,
and
nice.
It cleans the entire office in 3 minutes.
Oh, that's cool, man. I could see something like that really being nice,
Yeah. So, I can't have it on now, or all you'd hear is...
Right. Where are you? You're in Connecticut, right?
I am, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So
it's -4 this morning.
Yep. So we're going through the same thing up in Boston and further up in Maine.
That's really warm. Yeah. -4. That's excellent.
Yeah. Okay, Commander. Thank you.
They're probably
come again.
There are people like in the warmer parts of this country. They probably say, "Who cares about these guys up there freezing their asses
It's not
off?"
that warm in Florida. They were talking northern Florida in the 40s and stuff. So,
one of those real low kind of dipping
this
things.
is like Atlanta was ridiculously cold for them.
Oh, they go nuts down there, man. When something
they have no idea what to do.
Yeah, right.
Well, I mean, I have an observatory here with a very large telescope in it, a dome and all that stuff. And
which you feature for your YouTube programming.
Yeah,
right?
that's my Sky. It's called Sky Tour live stream. That's actually my. I guess I don't know what you call it, a vice.
Really?
Okay. I mean, my degree's in astronomy, so so my specialty is planets around other stars.
Let me ask you something, Mark.
Yeah.
If I can be so bold, are you a married man?
Yeah.
You are. Okay. What does your wife think about all this? She.
Well, I told her I'm moving to Arizona in a couple of years, and she sort of waves. Okay, bye.
Yeah. Send me a postcard when you get on. Thank you. So, but I mean, like, the day-to-day stuff of being, let's say, a UFO expert, someone who's on TV. I mean, does she share your belief in that there's something going on out there? If that's in fact what you believe.
I don't believe that she nor my children, 2 boys, actually really think about it.
Okay.
But I was on the phone today with a guy, and I had him on speakerphone, and my youngest son, who's in film school, actually, he came in and overheard the conversation of this guy who was in the Wisconsin woods telling me all about the imagery and videos that he's sending me that show what he thinks is an entire Bigfoot family. Now, I'm not there might be creatures on this planet that we haven't found yet. Certainly, in the deep ocean, we find new species every year. On the land, maybe. There's a lot of square, footage of a lot of acres, actually many acres that really we haven't been to yet in our country. There's a few places that are really remote. So. He's going to send me this imagery and stuff. I mean, I get that too. See, I get the UFO stuff, and then I get this stuff. Now I have a drone with a military grade infrared system on it.
Oh,
very nice one. Very nice.
I mean, you
and
can
I'm
see
going
at
to send
night.
that.
You can see.
Oh
at
yeah,
night?
absolutely.
Really? Yeah.
With impunity, I could fly with impunity. I took it to Arizona, and when I went up in the air there, I was looking down, and it was probably around 10 o'clock at night. And I was seeing animals running in the desert, probably coyotes. And I was also seeing these dark streaks on the ground.
Okay.
And what I was actually seeing was slightly cooler ground. And the answer to why that was slightly cooler was because that's where the water is. And you could tell where the water is from the air with an infrared system, especially at night. Because it cools quicker than the surrounding dirt that doesn't have any moisture.
How far away?
So I could map out the water running under the desert out there, which I did. And,
you're talking about water under the desert. Water that's under the desert. You're talking.
That's
about.
Correct. I mean, this is stuff that's like in aquifers. You can actually see the effect as it comes up. Now they have to be shallow. I mean, if they're really deep, you'd never see them, of course.
Right.
And you can't say, oh, this is where you dig your well.
Right.
But it does show you where the moisture content is higher. And that's important because animals frequent those areas. Animals go there because they can, with their paws scrape and then maybe get a little bit of a drink. But, they typically would chew on a saguaro cactus if they want to, get their water because they're just big water reservoirs. They just stick up.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, it's cool stuff. And so when you're investigating UFOs, you learn all these ancillary sciences that go along with your specialty, and then then some.
Right.
So, and you have to know this. And I tell people, to be a UFO investigator, and you don't just have to know how to use a camera. You have to know how cameras take pictures, good and bad. You also have to be able to understand Earth science. You have to understand astronomy, of course.
Wow.
And it just goes on and on. You even have to understand human anatomy. Okay, you have to understand why the human eyes are separated by just a couple inches or so, 2.5 inches. And the reason is, because of binocular vision, it gives us the ability to discern distance, doesn't it? But in a UFO case, what do you hear? It was 300 feet across and about a mile away. Right. And those are metrics that the person just thought that's what they saw.
Right.
But there's no way to know that that's really true, because if there's no references that they can use, then they're subject to the same problems. If you put 10 people at a same sighting, and I proved this actually in the desert with 30 people.
Okay.
If you put 10 people in a sighting and you ask them what they see, you're going to get maybe 8 different answers. Really, I mean, in reality, you get about 8 different answers.
Okay.
A couple of people will agree with each other. So I had 30 people in the desert. We were doing training for them on basically UFO recovery, actually. We had a fake UFO on the ground, courtesy of Chuck and Vicki Modlin, who gave up their land for this training, and it was a week. And on the final night, I flew a drone way out, about a half a mile out, and I had a very bright light on it, and I had it off. And now it was dusk; it was almost dark. And then I was using the infrared system, so I could see, and I was navigating around, saguaro cactuses with no problem. And then I turned it around with the light facing me, and then went way up in the air, turned the light on, okay? And now I start coming forward. And people are going, what's that? Hey, look, what's that in the sky? And I'm listening. And I was on the other side of the compound from where they were. But sound travels in the desert like you can't believe. I mean, you can hear someone coming literally from 2 miles away. You can hear them driving on the road, the dirt road. Yep. Okay? And so I'm listening to all these comments, and people are saying, what is that? My God, that's got to be moving like 200 miles an hour at least. Yes. Because I was racing horizontally, well, to them, left to right across the sky, just slipping to my left, if I was in the drone. Okay. And it was looking like to them like it was something moving several hundred miles an hour. And they said, how far away is that? And one person said, I think it's like a couple of miles. At that point, it was less than less than half a mile. And then I went racing way up in the air. And they said, whoa, if that's like several miles away, do you know that means it had to move at least 1,000 miles an hour? And there are all these numbers that they're throwing out. Everything is just because it's against a blank sky. They can't tell what it is. They can't tell how far it is.
Aren't you supposed to put your thumb up? I think, I read once, you put your thumb up and then you say, okay, it was, half the length of my thumb. My thumb held out as far as I can from my eyes, right? And that way they have something to kind of link onto that can give you the dimensions of whatever the hell is up there.
They could just give you the relative dimension. It was the size of, say, half my thumb. If they said that to you, then that could be a very small thing much closer or a big thing farther away.
Boom, boom.
You still don't have the range, and that's the thing. And as I got closer, I sped up, and I started racing it thing at high speed. It goes pretty good, about 35 to 38 miles an hour. And I'm racing across, and then I start dropping it down to the deck. And now the mountains are behind it. And the people are going, oh, I can see the mountains. Oh, no, what's going on? And now they're starting to panic. But now you see they're getting some range data. Well, the mountains Chuck said the mountains are 15 miles away. So that's got to be, much, much closer. And then as I got closer, they started to hear the sound. Okay. Because I was letting the cat out of the bag because, So anyway, it got closer and all of a sudden everybody was quiet. And the drone flies right over them. And then just look up. And then one person in the crowd goes, Mark! And yells out my name. And I went, yeah, what do you got? And they said, you idiot, that was you, wasn't it? And then, of course, everybody starts laughing and so forth.
Right. Okay.
But it proved the point, see, Mac. It proved the point that this was a situation where 30 people had quite a number of different approximations for the data that they thought they knew. Right. And that's what we see.
Right, yeah. Do they?
That's what we see.
Do the 30 people sign like insurance waivers before they go out in the deserts?
Actually, I think they did. This was actually.
How far? No, I'm only
the
kidding.
Mutual UFO Network that put on this the training, and I was one of the instructors. Yeah.
How far can you fly the drone away from you? Is it like a mile? Can the drone be out of your line of sight and still fly it? Whoa. Okay.
Well, hang on one second.
Okay.
I just inhaled in the wrong pipe.
Yeah, that's why you need to have that dust separator on.
Yeah, I don't have it on. That's the problem. It depends which one I have. I have one that I can get about 2 miles away with no problem, and of course you don't see it, so you have to fly from what it sees. And if you lose the signal, it'll just automatically say, "Uh-oh, I've lost the signal. I'm coming home to where I took off from."
Okay.
It'll come back by itself. I have another one, a hexacopter, a six motor system. That one can go 6 miles away.
Really?
And so we call that, it's not really truly this, but you call it over the horizon kind of a flight. As far as we're concerned, it's over our local horizon and not over our real horizon. But I use it. It's great because the software allows me to do grid searches, so I can actually just instruct it to do a grid search.
Right.
And it will automatically do a grid search by whatever numbers I put in for the grid.
Mm-hmm.
Really good stuff, and I can control it from an iPad or from a controller, like you're holding in like a regular radio controller.
Right. And do you ever? Does anything? You go back and you tape it, or are you watching it live? What it's broadcasting to you?
Both. I actually it video captures at 4K, which is very high resolution.
Right.
And it's transmitting live, so I get a live feed on the monitor.
Okay. Ever see anything like really kind of outrageously, freaky?
Well, I saw a rabbit eating some dandelion shoots on my front lawn in the middle of the night.
Wow, huh? Okay.
But that really scared me.
Yeah. Okay.
No,
I guess
I haven't yet. I haven't yet because I haven't, flown the IR system to the point where, I've flown it a lot, but I haven't flown it to the point where I've actually got enough flights under my belt that I can say I saw this on this date, that on that date.
Mm-hmm.
But that's coming. That's not far away. We do have a canyon trip we planned for the Grand Canyon where we're going to fly from river to rim with a drone.
Okay.
Fly off a J boat going down the river and then just go right up in the air and keep right on going and go above the top of the rim in one continuous shot. That takes a lot of battery power, but my big drone, it flies a 21 amp battery, so I get about 25 minutes of flight time on that. But
I think
a lot of practice has to happen.
I think Ellen now is the only one who's understanding this of the two of us.
Okay.
Well, that's okay.
No.
I mean,
I've been writing it down, but I'm falling behind.
No.
Well, it's a pre-record, so you can always cut that out.
Go ahead.
When you were talking about your perspective and what people see and what they don't, or what they think they see, and how many different people see same thing and interpret it differently. I have a friend who's about 7'6", so he's a giant. And if you took him and you brought him and you stood him next to a cement block wall, and you took people off, a distance away and say, "What do you see?" They'd say, "I see a gentleman standing by the wall."
Right.
But if you bring them closer, and they get a look at the guy, they go, "My God, the guy's huge." But
and now the wall's a lot taller. When you might have thought it was a lot shorter.
Right, but it's so funny because people don't get, everybody interprets things differently. So that's why you said when you get 8 different people looking at the same thing, you get 8 different interpretations of it, and it's human nature because you base it on your experiences to determine what you're seeing, because everyone's got a different interpretation of it. So, like with the UFOs, someone sees something they're predetermined to think that's what it looks like because that's their only reference, if you will, maybe.
You said the right word, reference. Okay, if you have a point of reference like an aircraft, people understand an aircraft is a certain size. Oh, look, a 737. Well, I know how big a 737-800 is. I know its wingspan. I know it even has Wi-Fi on board. Yay. Well, the fact is, seeing that in the sky, you can, if you took a photograph of it, you could calculate how high it is based on the size of the wingspan on the image. And knowing the actual size of the wingspan in real life, you could calculate for that image at that magnification how far away it is. Generally if it's leaving the contrail, then it's probably, and this is a rough view, above 30,000,
It would depend on the temperature, too, right? I mean, the colder it is out.
Yeah. It all depends on a lot of things. You can get contrails a little above and below that, sure. But I get photos. Speaking of jets, my favorite photo that people think are UFOs are the ones where the jets are at a distance, and so the contrail is very foreshortened. So the whole length of the contrail is compressed into this tiny little, near distance and far distance that aren't really separated from each other in the sky. And so it looks like this little dash in the sky when, in fact, it's a lot longer than that.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on the conditions, as you said, the contrail may vanish after only about 15 seconds in the air. But while the jet's still flying, you get a contrail behind it for a certain distance, and it goes away.
Right.
And especially at sunset.
Right. Yeah.
Those are beautiful. Those look gorgeous. You got these beautiful orange dashes in the sky.
Yeah.
And I get so many people saying, "This is not an aircraft." And it's like, Well, actually, it is. And I can prove it.
Yes.
4 or 5 different ways.
Yeah, chemtrails. I mean, that seemed to be like the hot topic maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and then it kind of died away. I mean, did you ever put any kind of credence in that at all?
No. See, science reared its ugly head, and the whole chemtrail controversy. There's still a few pockets of hardcore people out there that think that they're real, and they always seem to draw on the same tired old imagery showing big tanks in a wide body aircraft. And I when I see those, I say to them, these have been shown time and again to be ballast systems. How do you think they test new planes for different weight distributions? Okay, they pump water into tanks at various places in the plane to see how the performance changes. And of course, they don't buy that. They think the government's lying. And it's like, when you get that, you just say, you know what? I'm not going to even bother.
Right.
I said, but science will rear its ugly head in you once.
Why would the pilots? How would the pilots of these, these airplanes know that they weren't killing, some relative on the ground?
What would they use what would they use as criteria to say, okay, now's the time to let the stuff out, kill the most people if are hurt.
And every air traffic controller in the world would have to be in on it.
Well, you'd be complacent.
There'd be so many of them flying around there.
But we live in an area where there are a lot of jets up overhead, and I've taken pictures that show chemtrails from contrails from how many different jets at once. And I take these pictures and I post them to people and go, "Wow, are we in trouble here? Should I be worried about this here?" Just kidding.
People just love to think that they're chemtrails.
But, if you happen to live in an area where they all come together, come across the ocean.
But if you notice something over the sky, and Cobra can probably verify this, a lot of, and I don't know if I'm just imagining, but it seems like in the late spring you see a lot of aircraft going over our head, let's say, right? Not landing at Logan Airport, but overflying Logan Airport. You can almost see streams going, almost like they landed in New York or something.
Because they come across
a lot
the
of
ocean.
times
on vacation or whatever.
It's a lot to do with the jet stream, and if you're coming westbound, you're fighting a terrific headwind. So
you are
for areas that's going to allow you to get the best ground speed against that wind. So, and then the other thing is called the Great Circle Route, because you're flying over a sphere, so you have to aim for certain points that don't look like a straight line to that point. That's the reason why you see that. But it changes seasonally because of the way the wind is blowing.
Okay.
Especially at the higher altitude.
When you see those contrails at sunset, that's amazing, because it looks like someone has actually written something in the sky.
Oh, yeah.
Cobra, if some jet was flying over, Newburyport, right, landing in New York, would we still be able to see his contrail, or wouldn't he be coming down? Yeah? No?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
I wrote a program that would allow you to calculate the length of a contrail if you knew the angle off the horizon of the beginning of it from where you see it to the upper terminal point or a point along the route. And I can calculate the length, and I can routinely see contrails that are 160 miles long without any problem.
Oh wow! Okay.
Because and that's over your local horizon.
Yep.
And when you look at contrails like that, if they're coming at you, well, they look like they're vertical near the horizon.
Yeah.
And that's because they are on a sphere, right? And
so that's what you're looking at. You're kind of looking at it from one end on, instead of looking at it horizontally, let's say. You're kind of looking at it like the one end of the worm, looking down. And
that's right.
They look really, really strange. Some of them, it almost looks like something coming towards you. You know what I mean? It looks like the rocket exhaust.
And there are times we see so many, and they're all crossing, and and again, I've always maintained they come across.
Hang on a second. Is someone eating like a bowl of Cheerios or something? Is that you, Cobra?
Not me.
No, not me.
Al, is that you? Is that a bowl of Cheerios?
No, I'm cool. We see so many of them.
Cheerios.
We see so many of these trails coming, and I've always maintained that it was jets coming from Europe, and then hooking a left and going down toward New York or whatever, and just overflying us. And there's lots of them. And, there's times when there's so many, you walk out and you look up in the sky.
At night, it's unbelievable.
Wow, I can't get over how many of these there are.
It really is
unbelievable.
unbelievable.
And I've taken pictures of it just to be, to be funny. Just say,
we're like 20. We're only 20 miles from Logan Airport as the crow flies, right, Cobra? About 20 miles, 25 miles?
No, you're not that far. You're about 8.5, 9 miles from
Logan Airport as the crow flies?
Straight line. You betcha.
How about that?
Well, you should get a hold of that. The application, if you have an iPhone, get Flight Radar 24.
iPhone. You're kidding me? I got a flip phone.
We also have a house near us on the waterfront that has an observatory built in.
Oh, yeah, right.
Have you ever seen it?
The guy used to be the ABC newsman, Jay Shanlon or something.
Yeah,
right?
he was he was some famous guy. He built this oceanfort house, and he put
little observatory.
And it's still sitting there. I don't know if the guy ever used it.
He moved. He was at ABC for a long time, but you'd see him in Newport walking around.
Right, he's long gone from the area, but whoever bought the house, I don't know if they ever use it.
Right, you got to use it.
But it's
probably use it as a greenhouse.
That's a waste. That's a waste of time.
It's up there.
Open the slit and let the sun come in for a little while.
And you look at it and say, "Wow, that would be." I mean, because you look out over the ocean, there's no interference of lights from cities or anything. It must be an interesting.
You get on the beach at night in certain parts of Plum Island Beach. You get down there where there's like no light pollution around you. You want to see what the stars look like, man? That's what the stars look like. They're just everywhere.
Yeah,
They're everywhere.
You look out over the water and you're like, "Wow, I can't get over this." It's so beautiful.
Yeah. You can always see weird lights out on the water. I can. I can always see like blinking green lights and blinking red lights and moving back and forth.
Probably merchant ships
away
out.
Ships,
or or military things. Or
they do a lot of the exercises they do offshore.
Bringing pot in from Gloucester.
Hey, Mark.
That's what I'm going to bet on.
Quick shot here as we're kind of winding down with you here just a tiny bit. What is your most convincing case you've researched with your analysis that you do for MUFON and just your other research you've done? Do you have one that you can share that kind of sticks the most in your mind?
Actually, and you know this, Commander, as and I don't know if you know Mac, but my feeling has been that I'm a guy that looks at current cases. I try not to look at historical cases because that data's in. That's all there is. There's no further investigation that can be done that's going to turn up anything of any significance. I don't think. Roswell has been time and time again beaten to death and talked about over and over. But the bottom line for me is, looking forward, a truly convincing case for me. And so to answer your question, no, I don't have a case that stands out. But moving forward, I'm working with, as you know, Douglas Trumbull, who's, the screen legend, the guy who, did Close Encounters of the Third Kind with Steven Spielberg. He did the special effects for that movie.
Yes.
He did Blade Runner. Fantastic guy, good friend. And we're doing this UFO hunting system. Now, we originally called it UFO-TOG, UFO-TOG. It was a combination of the word UFO and photog, which is what they, called photographers, back in the day, so to speak.
Yes.
But UFO-TOG 2, we're looking for that to be our flagship sensor platter that would have a bunch of sensors on it.
Okay.
Trouble with that is that when you ever have the name UFO in the name of an object, an instrumentation package,
UFO,
you're not going to get funding.
Oh, right, yeah,
you're not going to get funding.
Right.
So we changed the
name.
Well,
apparently that's not completely true. You're just not good friends with Senator Reid.
Bringing the funny back. Okay, here we go.
That's true. That's right. And it took all kinds of crazy gyrations to get that out.
Right.
But if you look at the name now is the Aerial Anomaly Detection System, so AADS.
Okay.
And so that system now, and it has a multiple purpose, effect now, because that can not only see any anomalous activity in our skies, it's also something that can look for meteors and log them, track them, perhaps even the killer asteroid that may be lurking out there. It can log and find it and see it maybe.
Right.
And they're also deployable units that are standalone, have their own energy, sources. They can actually create.
Right.
With a solar panel set up, they're going to create their own energy and store it.
Yes.
And, the Mutual UFO Network, field investigators in each of these states are going to be able to be our boots on the ground folks that will go and retrieve data from these systems in the very first phase anyway. And we're still a ways from completion, but the thing is, there's that AADS system, basically it's a UFO hunting broadcasting system, right?
Yes.
And then there's Sky Through Livestream, where I actually talk about deep sky wonders and show people these deep sky wonders in seconds, not minutes, using very sensitive cameras.
Well worth participating.
Some of the stuff that they pick up
as
out there.
Commander did. He was on board with us one night. It was wonderful.
Yeah, I bet he was. So, some of the pictures that you see, like that the Hubble was taken, and then they're going to put the James Webb satellite up within a couple of years, and that's going to make Hubble look like the thing you buy in the friggin' Walmart or something. It's going to
it's more than double the size mirror as the Hubble, But it's also Hubble's just about 8 feet, and this one's going to be like 21 feet, so it's pretty good.
It's going to be able to detect carbon monoxide and dioxide in the atmospheres of planets, and they think if it's concentrated, you can tell that's where a city or something was. So,
wow.
Well, yeah. Let me just give you one quick thing.
Okay.
Our planet has a lot of oxygen in the atmosphere. And so we're just used to that and think, oh, well, oxygen in the atmosphere is normal. Let's find planets that have oxygen, and, maybe that's a life thing. But you have to look at why there's oxygen in an atmosphere. Oxygen loves to bind with stuff. It loves to dive into the soils and bind, calcium becomes calcium, compounds, calcium oxides of all kinds, and it's an oxidizer, right? So it tends to bind with things. So left alone, if there was nothing to replenish the oxygen, it would be gone in just a few million years or a few 100 million years.
Right.
So that means something's replenishing it. And what is that something? Well, it could be volcanic activity, in which case you'd have methane, ammonia, and other water vapor, of course, in the atmosphere, and then, of course, oxygen with that. Well, if that's the case, if you can detect a planet's atmosphere, an exoplanet's atmosphere, if you see oxygen and carbon dioxide, well, then you know that it's probably being replenished, by life. Because on our planet, oxygen is being replenished, and many people think it's the rainforest and stuff to give us the oxygen.
Right. Okay.
That's actually only half the picture. It's the plankton in the ocean that are the biggest, almost the biggest producers of oxygen. They actually sort of share. They run neck and neck with plants, green plants on the land. So it's really cool.
Oh, it is cool. It kind of sucks to have sucked at high school. I didn't. You know what I mean? Now I know I should have been paying attention. During chemistry, during biology.
Well, if you join the Sky Through live stream, I can promise you that in terms that you'll certainly understand. You'll know something more than you did when you came in. Possibly.
In terms only you can understand.
Possibly.
Hey, listen, I got one more question.
Quite a lot,
One more question to ask you. We're talking to Marc D'Antonio, right? Did I say it right? D'Antonio. Okay.
D'Antonio. Yeah, like D with an A, D-A-N-T-O-N-I-O. So Antonio with a D in front of it.
Okay.
So D'Antonio.
So you've been on TV. Did you say 10 years? You've been doing this? 10 years?
Well, no. I've been on like about 10 different networks, here and there, but. I'm on Discovery and Learning Channel a lot now, and I think History. I always get confused. I'm not sure which one, but it's NASA's Unexplained Files. I've been in all the seasons of that show, and then What on Earth. They're using me for the seasons of that show too. So, and they're up to 4 seasons. So, the 4 seasons.
So listen. So I wanted to ask 2 questions. Did they pay you? Did they make it worth your while to be showing up all the time on these shows?
Well, I run a visual effects business, so that takes me away from my business, and I can't do this for nothing, unfortunately.
Okay. Yes. Right.
So I do have to, get paid for it, but they can't pay me to say something that's not true.
Oh, right. Yeah. But,
and they have tried. Not them in particular, but I did another show called Aliens on the Moon, which was all over Netflix for a while. It's still out there.
Okay.
And it was done by the same guy that did Alien Autopsy. Now, I was supposed to have all that moon crater footage and photos they wanted me to analyze.
Okay.
Weeks before the show was being filmed, and they came here, to do it.
Yep.
Well, they showed up at like 9 in the morning on a day we're shooting. I still didn't have the footage.
Okay.
They set up, and we started taping at 2 in the afternoon.
Okay.
I still didn't have the footage.
Okay.
I didn't get the footage until 10 p.m. at night.
Wow. They stayed in your house that whole time? What a drag.
And we sometimes go until, 14, 15 hours. But that's my typical awakened sleep time cycle. I mean, I'm 14, 15 hours normally.
Wow.
But
sleep or awake? You're awake 15 hours or you sleep 15 hours?
No, I'm normally awake for a long time. I get very little sleep, and I eat a whole lot. I kind of work that out somehow.
How long are we awake? I mean, 24 hours a day, probably sleep 6 6 hours a night?
Most people sleep about 8.
Do they really?
You're supposed to get your 8 hours.
They get up really early. Maybe that's why.
Yeah, and you know what? I can understand that, and sometimes I'll let myself sleep for that long, and then I just feel like a slug for the whole day.
Mm-hmm.
But so I've had these production companies play little games like this with shows like that.
Okay, yeah.
I had who's the guy that did Super Size Me there? That guy.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, the guy who did the Super Size Me with went to McDonald's and ate everything McDonald's sold.
Yeah,
who was
that? Michael Moore? Was that Michael Moore?
No, but it was a guy kind of like him, though. He got like liver damage in 23 days.
Who was it?
But he was here too because he had a show for a while. I think it was on CNN, and it was trying to get to the bottom of certain things.
You're talking about Morgan Spurlock, eh?
Yes,
yeah, that's his
who it was.
name, right?
What a knucklehead!
Yeah.
Yes, and Morgan was here,
well, cool.
and he had a hard drive full of data that he had acquired by going all over the United States and had all these imagery from UFO sightings.
Right.
And his last stop was here to have me look at it.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And I looked at it, and I'm very objective because, look, I've had experiences I cannot explain.
Did you see anything?
Okay. No, he didn't have any, as far as I could tell. In fact, I think he was trying to. I don't know this for sure because he wouldn't admit it. But I think one of the images was actually an attempt to fool me.
Okay. Yeah.
And not that I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. I'm not. But I think he did this to try and see what my capabilities were.
Okay.
But I think it was an image taken through glass.
Oh.
And I had another show where they did that. They actually showed me like 10 or 15 images, and they said real or fake, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And I went through and I just gave an objective view, and I just remember the last one. And by the way, my track record for that particular show, there were 10 images I had to look at. I got all 10 correct in terms of whether they're real or fake.
Wow.
Okay. Well, unless you can take a photo really, really convincingly,
right?
It's going to be pretty easy to discern. That's how I look at it.
Or if you happen to know a real good photo retoucher,
right?
Yeah, I don't like being, ambushed, but then again, I don't want to hear questions ahead of time. I don't mind being spontaneous because I think that's really what people want to hear. They want to hear you honestly perplexed, and they want to hear when you're, thinking through an answer. They want to hear that part of it because they're with you.
Right, yeah.
They're with you. So, they don't want to hear a rehearsed answer.
So when you know the show is going to be on, you sit down. Do you see the show before it's televised, or are you seeing the edited version right as you're sitting in your home the first night it shows?
Yeah. I actually, it's very rare that I get to see my own work.
Okay.
So I saw a couple episodes of What on Earth.
Wait a minute. Time out. But are you saying you don't watch yourself on TV? One of the shows you don't? I'd watch the friggin' thing 10 times a day. I'd keep watching until a new one came about. Why wouldn't you watch it? You're on TV. Why wouldn't you watch it?
Well, I think because it would for me. It would then be I already did this, so I wouldn't be enjoying watching for information. I'd be watching to watch myself, and I might be more critical of me because I already know the story. I already know the outcome. So watching me is not comfortable for me. I don't need to do that.
Al,
if they think it's good, that's good.
If you were in his place, right? Would you watch yourself on TV?
I would probably watch a little bit of it, and I'd probably say, you know what, I don't need to do this anymore.
Cobra, I know what Cobra's answer is. Cobra would be there, watching it 15 times a day, like I would be.
No, well, I'm playing Bad Boys 2 right now in the background while we're doing the show. There you go.
No.
You're on TV, when you just want to know everything about, what you look like and how you spoke and all that stuff.
Listen, you know James Oberg?
Yes.
That NASA guy, former NASA guy. Yep. James and I did a show separately, but together on this one episode. And actually, I think it was Aliens on the Moon, where he was consulted, I was consulted, and we both did a part. And I wore a red shirt the day of the shooting, and I was talking about these craters, and he noticed that I always had more to say, but they never let me finish. So I was saying things like, yeah, this is interesting looking, but, and then it went to commercial, or it changed, and this guy thinks it's this. And they never got back to me for me to finish the sentence and say, but this is actually just a crater. Okay? And so basically, I was the sacrifice, it seemed to him.
Right.
So he wrote me and said, "Haha, you're the red shirt guy in Star Trek."
Who's that? The guy who gets killed all the time?
I responded, "James, you're absolutely right. You know, it's so cool. Hey, thanks for writing and nice to meet you."
He's the guy who gets shot. The first guy who gets shot. He's wearing the red.
Never had a name.
That's right.
Oh, he never.
They never named.
It's like in Star Trek. They're getting on the transporter pad to go down, and the guy looks down and goes, "Oh man, I got the red shirt on."
And I don't have a name. But the thing is, when they're showing you pictures of these things,
yeah,
I mean they're setting you up because retouching in today's world, they can do a lot. I know some really good photo retouchers, and they can do stuff. You'd be pretty hard pressed to tell, and it's not fair to hand you pictures and say, are these real or are they fake? When you don't know how much work.
Yeah, you got to study
hours worth of retouching work.
Okay,
except part of my business is making those very same types of imagery projects. So I know what people do to make fake-looking photos. Right. I make them myself for photorealistic things. I have submarines that I've made on water that look like they're on water.
Yes.
Okay, but they're not real. They're fake. But I generate them. I have an Earth that I generate, an Earth complete with clouds.
Oh, cool.
Even the sunset-looking sun when you're looking at it on the edge through the atmosphere.
Nice.
It all works right according to the physics. And this is a generated Earth. I did it initially for the studio with Doug at Trumbull at the studio to try and show him kind of what I could do.
Right.
And this ended up being like, for instance, once you get good at building that type of imagery, you can recognize the other artists at work.
Oh, wow. I should write
that. And
so
I had a case back in 2008, actually, a long time ago. It was called the Tahoe drone in the press.
All right.
And it were these things that were shown photographed flying over telephone poles and, all the proper things in the foreground that made you think they were in the way.
Oh, wow.
And the thing was behind them, far up in the sky.
Wow.
But I took it apart from a point of view of a computer graphics guy. I looked at it and said, if I was really using a camera, and this is where you have to be a computer graphics guy.
Go ahead.
You have to be a photographer. You have to understand how cameras work, all that.
Yes.
I looked at it and said, because I understand how light meters on a camera work, this thing shot up in the sky. You can see the bottom very clearly.
Yes, yes.
Now, and it's at a gray level that would be what you would expect when you did a normally properly exposed dark area on an object like this.
Okay.
However, the consequence of doing that is that the sky would be blown out and much brighter. It wouldn't be blue. It would be almost white. So
you have an eye for this stuff is what you're saying.
Yes, you have to.
Okay.
And I looked at that, and I called it a hoax right from the very start. I got all kinds of flack for that. Oh, you can't believe it. But you know what? I don't have an ego to bruise.
Yeah.
I can't be swayed. If I think that the science or the data doesn't stand up, well, hey, this data doesn't stand up.
All right.
It's like the 2 videos the Pentagon just released.
Right.
Okay? In both of those videos, I sent my report off yesterday, actually.
Yes.
To the Mutual UFO Network, to Jan Harzan. And it says, basically, this if these are a real event, these videos don't show it. These videos don't show anything that's acting out of the ordinary. And there's one of the 2 videos. One's called the gimbal video.
Right.
You hear a guy in a transcript saying it's rotating, and
right.
Showing it, it's rotating. But what's actually happening there, I believe, is the same thing that happens when you have a filter over the end of a camera, and that filter, say, is a star filter or it's a a prismatic filter. As you rotate the filter, so too goes the effect. But the scene doesn't change.
Right.
I think this was an infrared flare, caused by too high a gain. It is, too bright, basically, for the infrared camera. And when the pod on this F-18 Hornet, if you understand the whole scenario of these 2 videos, and when the pod on this F-18 Hornet was adjusting, it would bump a little, and you'd see the bump. Only at that time did the thing rotate. Okay. That's when something on the end of the lens that's in this thing, which I don't understand yet because I don't know the internal workings. It's obviously a company secret for Raytheon. But that's when something at the end of this thing, on the end of this pod, rotated.
Right. Okay. Well, let me ask you this: wouldn't the pilots, both of the pilots were veteran pilots? Wouldn't they know that? Wouldn't they have seen that 100 friggin' times in all their hours in flight?
Yes, if you believe the transcript is actual.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. That's another show.
I mean,
I got it.
It's another sticky point, and Commander and I talked about it on another place, and we, I think we. I deferred to him because I'm not a specialist on communications in the cockpit.
Yes.
And he listened to it, and he thought it was reasonable. I don't know if he still thinks that. But
I got two questions that I have to ask you before we got to go. Okay, in 4 minutes. Okay, number one, I just want to go on record as saying this. Your friend Doug Trumbo, you said that he did some work on Close Encounters, right?
Yeah, he did all the visual effects. Yeah.
Here it is. Okay, here I am spitballing to Hollywood. Remake that film. Reboot that film, and people will go nuts if you just do it right. Remember, I mean, it's a great film. I wrote my college dissertation on. Okay.
Wow.
All right, but there are flaws in it. It's not a perfect thing these days.
No.
Now the flaws, a lot of it in the special effects. A lot of the people at the end, you can tell he just said, "What are we breathing?" Is that you, Cobra?
Yeah, it's not me, sir.
All right, and you could tell they were just kind of. He said, "Look at the ceiling, and then they put in the effects, and they don't have the. You can get around that now. You can just build a better story about Richard Dreyfuss, seeing the thing. I think it'd be a great friggin' movie to reboot. They reboot everything else. You remember, right?
Blade Runner.
Blade Runner
was rebooted.
Go ahead, Al.
And they've run out of everything else to go to. They might as well try
that.
that.
Yeah, I think you could. And I read once that the original script called for, instead of Dreyfuss being the telephone lineman, okay, it was supposed to be like a Air Force officer, a young lieutenant trying to find. It was almost like X-Files. Reverse, he didn't believe, and then he gradually believed, and he sees them. It was a cool movie. I've seen that movie more than any other movie. I've seen it at least 30, 40 times. It's a cool movie, but there's flaws, and I think it just fixed. The second thing, this is a email from the audience. Can you get, let's say, girls from being on these shows? Do they come on to you because you're somewhat of a celebrity? Has that ever come up in the soup?
Yeah, it in a sense, but you know what? I don't think of myself as any great prize, and I don't carry myself as one. Okay. So if people think that, well, that's on them, But
so it has happened. Sounds like a yes.
Interesting question. Yeah, there's people who are attracted to, I think intelligence in a lot of ways.
Wow.
And if there's someone who's doing this and willing to come out and talk about it, but is also semi-intelligent about it, then I think that is attractive to many people, I guess.
There's groupies for everything.
There's a benefit in marrying smart chicks, right? Because then you don't have to be so smart. Yeah. Look at me, I'm 24 years.
They say there's a benefit to marrying ugly women, too.
Really? Yeah. What could that possibly be? They can cook.
They're gracious.
They're gracious.
They're good to you.
That's going to get into the final cut.
Well, listen. Thanks for joining us. Okay, Marc D'Antonio.
Yeah, had a fun time, you guys.
Hey, listen, you're an interesting cat, as they used to say. We should have you back on and just talk about Roswell for an hour or something like that.
Yeah, I was out there. I spoke at that Roswell.
Nothing happened
conference.
Out there, right? Nothing happened out there, though, right? Correct.
I see that. Now, for me, the jury's still out on that.
Okay, good.
Okay.
All right.
The jury's still out. I don't necessarily believe that it was a government project covered up.
Right.
But all of the garbage that came up after it that was thrown in by someone looking to get famous or thrown in by people looking to get popular, all that stuff, or to get girls at a conference, for instance.
Okay. All right.
All of that stuff.
Bingo.
There you go.
All of that stuff is stuff that muddies the water and obfuscates the truth. Uh-oh. And that's something that that's why I say when we for our aerial anomaly detection system, okay, for that system we're going to have instrumentation that's going to actually check for entry and exit from our dimensional space, X, Y, and Z, all moving through time.
Go ahead. Yes.
And if we can find that, then that's a smoking gun. So if we see a light in the sky on the camera that's seeing visual stuff, and then the light winks out, well, then anyone can say, oh, well, that was just a plane and turned away and its landing lights were on and now they're not present anymore. Or they'll say, oh, it was a satellite and it faded away. Or if you know that thing winked out at the same exact time that you got a burst of gamma rays,
Okay.
Okay. And the local magnetic field changed and fluctuated right at that point. See, it's the evidence all taken together that gives the case its strength.
Al, how did we get to talk about this? We were talking about picking up chicks, right? About 2 minutes ago. How do we get from there to there? Hey, listen, we got to go. We got to say bye-bye. But listen, please come back on again soon, okay? Because
sure
you're
thing.
interested.
It was
I think that the audience really enjoys listening to you. So that is Marc D'Antonio. Just
D'Antonio. You'll get it right
what
eventually.
What am I saying wrong? D'Antonio.
And you're saying the and in there.
Okay. D'Antonio. Okay. All right.
Danon's a yogurt. So it's D'Antonio. There you go.
From the Dan and Yoga fortune. Thanks for joining us. And listen, we'll be in touch with you and we can talk again real soon, okay?
Hey, thanks, Al. Thanks.
There he goes. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you very much. That was very enlightening. I must say.
Thank you.
Hey, I had a fun time. Thanks,
guys.
We'll
talk to you soon. See you later.
Bye, Mark.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye, Commander.
You know what? We didn't salute him. Let's salute him. Let's get it over with. You ready?
Okay.
Ready? Go.
You got to really give it the shake.
Wow. The British would laugh at you.
Yeah, well, hey, All
right,
I'm a left-handed Italian. What do you want?
We got to go. That's the name of our new band, the Left-Handed Italians.
That's a good name.
Hey, listen, quite the concourse that we just had, if that's the right word, maybe not. But why don't we take a long ad now, and when we come back, we'll have hopefully Emily M and Switchblade talking to us about what's been going on down there in Point Pleasant, Virginia, the home of Mothman. Back everyone to Mack Maloney's Mill Track Style Show here on the Distant Thunder Radio Network. This is Mack Maloney. What a show we have going on here tonight. Al Rinaldo, UFO mechanic, is here in the house with us.
Good evening, Al.
Juan-Juan isn't here, girls. He's out on a secret mission that we're hoping to talk to him this time next week. So you can forget the flood of emails that I know are coming our way. Juan-Juan, next week, girls, we promise. Commander Cobra, where'd he go? Well, Al, any idea?
Animal husbandry.
Oh, that's right. He's suckling his goats, and believe it or not, that makes sense if you heard the first part of the show. And also, Switchblade is here with us, calling in. Switchblade Steve Ward up there in the Bowl of Flakes, Battle Creek, Michigan. How are you doing there tonight there, Switchy?
I am freezing my tuchus off.
Wow, okay. Hold on. No! It is cold. It's very cold here. I mean, it was, 2 degrees 2 days ago, Al?
Oh, yeah, it's been, the wind chills are just stunning. We're setting records for low temperature. I think we're tied with 1907 or something to that effect for so many days not climbing out of single digits.
Since Christmas, since Christmas, it has been just
horrible.
Single digits here, and it's a drag, man. There's nothing good about it. There's nothing good about it. Except we did walk down the beach yesterday, though. Went down to the water just real quick, but it was so cold that like little swirls of vapor were coming up from the waves and stuff. Yeah, that's cold, man.
You got to notice all of the propane and oil delivery trucks that are just everywhere. People are constantly
come to my house.
They're chewing up their heating oil and their propane like nobody's business.
And wood and so on. See, boy, we sound like two old guys rocking.
Two old New
propane.
Englanders.
I had to get a propane. Anyway, Switch. So, how you doing up there? Do you have those kind of problems up there in Battle Creek, or is it just fun all the time?
Well, you know how they say that if you're from Michigan, you must be used to the cold weather. You can handle it. It's not true.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay. You're here to expose
I'm wearing 3 shirts right now.
Okay. All right. TMI, but that's okay. Also, with you in tandem, the very, I have to say it, I'm sorry, the very lovely Emily M. is on the line with us.
Hello.
Oh, all right. See what I mean now? Okay. Hello, Emily. Do you have 3 shirts on, or is that not?
I do, actually.
You do? Wow. Interesting.
It's cold here, too.
In Cincinnati.
Yeah, I think it's 9 degrees.
Wow.
We have the same wardrobe, people.
Okay, there you go. Switcheroo. First one of the night. Keep them coming, Switch. So it's everywhere. Where can we go to escape this?
You can't even go to Florida.
Wow, that stinks.
I've heard it's in the 40s in parts of Florida.
Imagine getting a week in Florida, the first week in January in Florida this year, and it's like below zero down there. You got to get your money back.
Right now, if you're going to take, this time of year, to be sure, you can't even trust Mexico. You got to go to like Aruba. You got to be down near the equator.
I went to Florida for for 6 weeks one year. From all of December into the middle of January. And it was nice. It was like a fall that just wouldn't end. You know what I mean? I'm sorry, man. I don't like Florida. I don't think I'd ever want to live there. No offense to people in Florida, but it is kind of cool there in the winter. You don't have to put up with a lot of. Boy, talk about old people talking. We're not going to go into God's green room, Florida.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There are literally, intersections there where there's a drugstore at every corner.
See, I have a friend who owned houses on Sanibel.
Oh, yeah.
And he would say, look, if you're not doing anything for Christmas, fly down, use one of the houses, and there's a car in the garage. There's the whole 9 yards.
Nice. Okay.
And we'd go down to Sanibel and hang out for a week. It's a beautiful house.
Mm-hmm.
And it still wasn't really beach weather.
Okay.
I mean, it was nice. It was okay, but it was better than being here.
Yes.
But still, to be able to go to the beach, you need to keep going south.
Yeah, keep going south. You ain't kidding. But once you get down there, like, one thing was going swimming in that kind of period that I was talking about. The water's really warm. It's weird to get in the water that's almost like bath water warm in a way, And there's no waves down there either on the East Coast anyway. Did you know that? Interesting. So anyway, yeah, Emily, you still there? You still awake?
I am, and I'm actually thinking about how I'll be in Miami next week.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it looks like it'll be in the 70s, or maybe low 80s.
That would
I'll
work.
take it.
That would work very nicely. Yeah.
Will you? Can you do a remote for us, as they say in the biz?
Perhaps.
Oh wow. Okay. All right.
You could gloat. You could tell us.
Something to look forward to.
I could.
Yeah.
This is all going to be evidence someday, Al. I just get that feeling. Anyway, so you guys have put your noodles together, and you're going to give us a special presentation now on this bridge, this very mysterious bridge that connects. Is it Point Pleasant? I always get it wrong.
Yes, Point Pleasant with Gallipolis, Ohio.
Okay, and it's a river and a bridge that goes from Virginia.
It goes across the Ohio River.
Right.
And it's right near the Kanawha where the two rivers come together.
Right. Okay.
And how much time do we have, Mac? Just to give a rough idea, because we want to make sure we get everything in that we need to.
30 minutes.
Okay. Excellent. I was going to start just a little bit with the background, and then the night of the disaster, and then Emily was going to follow up with some of the high strangeness that preceded this, and then we're going to kind of go back and forth a little bit. Okay. But this was when it was first built, 1928. It was they cut the ribbon on May 30th, Memorial Day. It was called an I-bar chain suspension bridge, a state of the art at its time.
Okay.
They called it the Silver Bridge because of the aluminum paint they used on it.
Yep.
It was a big deal. They had a crowd of 10,000, and it was it was like the state of the art at the time. But as time went on, now we're going to be leading up to 1967 when we had this terrible tragedy of the bridge collapse. It started out with you had something like maybe 1,900. I'm sorry, that's wrong. About 685 cars would cross this thing a day.
Okay.
Well, by 1967, it was over 9,000 a day. And these vehicles are getting heavier, the trucks are getting heavier, and so forth. And the bridge wasn't really updated.
Okay.
And so we're leading up to December 15th, frigid December 1967. And it's extremely cold. It's in the 20s. And, again, you think, picture this. We're leading up to Christmas. I mean, people are going back and forth doing their Christmas shopping. The lights on the bridge were notorious for being really slow to change. And a lot of times people, if the bridge wasn't crowded, they would just run the light.
Oh.
Well, here, this bridge is full of cars. And at 4:58, December 15th, 1967, the bridge went down. Wow. It was the 13th I-bar, one of these I-bars at the top of the bridge that gave loose. Turned out to be defective. and the whole thing collapsed in about 40 seconds to a minute.
Wow, man, that's a nightmare.
Like a deck of cards,
right?
It was. Let me see. We lost 46 people. Died in this tragedy. They only recovered 44 of the bodies. 2 they never recovered.
Wow!
But they put 2 and 2 together, and they just disappeared. So they knew they must have gone down on the bridge. There were. I've got a note here. I don't see it right now. Where how many cars were actually on the bridge?
Right.
But there were some. There were several. Toward the end, I wanted to tell about. I was able to talk to a survivor, but there were all kinds of stories.
Right.
Before I turn this over to Emily, because she's got some of the really interesting stuff.
Right.
Charlene Wood, she was pregnant with 2 children. She starts to go over across the bridge. She feels it vibrate. Now, her father is a captain that runs one of these barges back and forth.
Okay.
And he says sometimes the barges have actually hit the bridge, hit the pilings that hold it up.
Okay.
And so she backs up.
Wow.
And she does just in time. Wow. The bridge separates right where her car was. And then the power lines fall on top of the car. There was a state trooper and another guy that helped her get out.
Yep.
So she's one of the lucky ones. And just a few months later, her twins were born.
Wow. Man,
another guy, Jimmy Wedge.
A great story.
He was playing basketball for Point Pleasant. They were they were playing Ripley that night.
Right.
And his parents were over in Ohio at a restaurant.
Yes.
And they heard about a problem with the bridge, and it didn't dawn on him that they might actually be on the bridge. He assumed they were just caught in traffic.
Right.
Well, they never came back. He played his game, and when it was over, he was informed that his parents had passed on the bridge. So there's one story after another like this.
Wow. And this is right around Christmas, and
yes,
to me,
this is.
How high was the bridge, Switch? How high would you?
You know what? I don't know. Okay. I don't have that.
But it was a flat bridge. It wasn't like something going over, let's say, the Mystic Bridge in Boston.
No.
It was but a good sized bridge.
Right.
I think at least I'm saying it from the movie and some pictures I've seen. But to have a bridge collapse and have you fall into freezing water at night, I mean that's like nightmare stuff. It really and truly is.
Yes.
Wow. Having these people, we should also explain that. Well, this bridge connected Point Pleasant, Virginia, and in Point Pleasant, Virginia, is
West Virginia.
West Virginia is where Mothman made his first appearance and kind of haunted the place for quite a while. And then, sometime after he kind of leaves the scene, this tragedy happened. So tell us what's new.
Well, let's turn it over to Emily here, because this was actually one of the first big sightings, a famous one where the 2 couples were chased by this thing down Route 62, was 13 months to the day. So let me turn this over to Emily right now, because she's got a lot of the information on what John Keel, the author of the Mothman Prophecies, called the Year of the Garuda.
Oh, right, the Year of the Garuda. I love that. Go ahead, please, Emily.
Sure. Yeah. So like Steve said, exactly 13 months to the day prior to the Silver Bridge collapsing was the first major sighting of the Mothman by the 2 couples that were out in what's called the TNT area outside of Point Pleasant, which used to be a storage area for munitions that were manufactured during World War II. And it's still to this day a super creepy area. We always go out there and investigate and see stuff. But anyhow, these 2 couples were out there. And this Mothman, this giant winged humanoid creature with glowing red eyes, appears on the scene and follows their car and, is keeping up with the high speed that they're going down this road out in the middle of nowhere. And that was really the first documented sighting of the Mothman, with many more to continue over the course of the next 13 months. And it seems like the sightings of the Mothman, they occurred during the next 13 months between that initial sighting on November 15th and then the bridge collapse on December 15th of the following year. And it seems that those sightings really tapered off once the bridge collapsed. You hear a few here and there, random ones, in years since, but nothing like it was during those 13 months. And to me, oddly enough, it's not the Mothman so much that's the weird phenomena during those 13 months. It's everything else that came with it that I think it was probably all related, but you have the Men in Black showing up, and not like the Will Smith, Tommy Lee Jones Men in Black, but strange Men in Black who don't appear quite human and don't seem to... They look human, but there's something off about them, and their mannerisms are weird, and it's almost like they don't know how to do, simple tasks, when they're talking to these people and they show up, in the middle of the night and are frightening people. There's that, and then there's just a wave of UFOs that are seen around that area. So many so to the point that, when John Keel was in Point Pleasant investigating, he and Mary Heyer, the journalist there in Point Pleasant, would go out to, and I forget exactly where this is, and Steve, you might know better, but I know there was a hill kind of outside, a couple miles outside of Point Pleasant, I think.
Right.
That they would go to every night and just see tons of these UFOs in the sky. And, that I think thousands of people would come to this hill as well and just park and watch all these lights every single night that happened in that 13-month span.
Actually, originally, Keel, because there are all kinds of people with loaded guns in the TNT area trying to find the Mothman.
Right.
They found that this place was south called Gallipolis Ferry, which is in West Virginia. So for a while there, it was very quiet. And he and Mary Heyer, the reporter that he became colleague and a friend with, they would go down there and they would see. If you read the Mothman prophecies, it's fascinating what the stuff they saw there. But go ahead, Emily.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think just all of this paranormal activity that happened in and around Point Pleasant between the first sighting of the Mothman and the Silver Bridge collapse, and the fact that it's seemed to stop really with the bridge collapse, at least the Mothman sightings, the UFO, well, as frequent UFO sightings, I guess, and the Men in Black, that all just seemed to cut off after the Silver Bridge collapse. So it's interesting to try to figure out how those are all interconnected, but it seems like surely they have to be. Right.
Anytime really when you have any kind of UFO cases or, flaps as they call them, when there's almost like you can put a period at the end of the sentence to a lot of them, and it's almost like, the government stops paying attention or says they stop paying attention or something else, comes along, takes its place, whatever. But, the fact that, these UFO flaps actually have an ending to them kind of tells you, well, something must be happening there. It had a beginning and a definite end, so.
There was also, I mentioned Mary Heyer before. She got a very strange report from a lady that 2 days before the bridge collapsed, she said she saw some men climbing around on the bridge. They were wearing street shoes. These men kind of fit the general category of the Men in Black phenomena, but they also were wearing checkered coats. We've talked before about the strange phenomena of the man in the checkered shirt, which is often kind of a bedroom invader, kind of an apparition that shows up. There is something in occult lore where you see this, and also it's kind of connected with the grinning man, and we've talked about that before. Another strange paranormal tie-in, but awfully odd to see a couple men. It may have, again, this may have nothing to do with anything. I mean, we can't be definitive, but two men climbing around the bridge a couple days before in street shoes. What the heck is that all about?
Yeah, really. I mean, they weren't inspectors or anything like that.
Didn't seem to be.
Okay, talking about people climbing over bridges in street shoes, we're trying to get Cobra back on the line. I'm sure he's done that once or twice. Cobra, are you there, Cob? Maybe we'll just keep on calling him. So,
They rebuilt the Silver Bridge actually down a little further, and it was recommissioned on December 15th, 1969.
Right. Okay.
So they got that going again, but I think it was a real blow to the economy and sort of the psyche of the people there.
Right. Yeah. Yep. No, you can see how it would be. So, did they ever look into the the bridge? What is that noise? Do you hear? Does someone have a parrot there? Hear that noise? Kind of like a sizzling noise. Is that you?
I hear it, but I don't know what it is.
Wow. Do you have your parrot out again? Switch.
Not no, I don't do that in public.
All right, there you go. See? All right, just like I say, when the human tail's off, Switch comes through, injecting funny into the room. So anyway, go ahead, please. Sorry.
Okay. Did you want to continue, Emily, or didn't you say Emily told me that haven't you had some strange experiences connected with the bridge, or sensed something? Is that correct? Or
yes,
I have.
Yeah, okay. All right.
That's interesting. I don't know about this either.
Okay. Yeah, well, you were there for some of it, Steve, at the at the site.
You mean when we did the ghost stuff? Oh,
yeah.
I was thinking. Oh, okay. Well,
what do you think she was referring to?
She's talking about where the original Silver Bridge used to stand.
Okay.
Yes, did some EVP stuff. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. For the heck of it.
Yeah, so at the original bridge site, the site of the collapse, there's a marker there with a plaque on it, memorializing the spot. And so we often go down there as a group and, kind of to pay our respects and just see if anyone is hanging around. And as I think you all know, I sense spirits often, and that is a prime location for them, since there were so many lives lost there, and as well as other people who may not have died in the bridge collapse, but had family members that did or were associated with it, and therefore they have a strong attachment to the area as well. And so almost every time we go there, I sense people. Every once in a while I will get a name from people. David is someone I often hear that name when we're down there. I haven't researched enough to find out who that might be. Another name that we often get is Catherine. And Catherine, I believe, was one of the two people who was not found.
Wow.
If I'm not mistaken. And that name came very early on.
Right.
But we've definitely gotten some interesting recordings down there, as well as Steve, you were there for the time.
Should we tell them about the flashlight?
Yeah, you tell that.
Okay, well, yeah, when you said the bridge, for some reason I was thinking the new bridge, and I thought, I didn't know about that. But yeah, we were down there. This is a few years ago. I think this is probably about 2010. And, we're looking like real paranormal investigators, man. We got the recorders going and doing the EVP thing.
Yes.
Well, unbeknownst to us, you know how on the TV shows they'll set up a flashlight just on the verge of being turned on?
Okay,
and
yeah.
Supposedly, well, Emily had done that. We didn't know it. And all of a sudden, this flashlight turns on. So, and then goes off again. Mm-hmm. And so we're stamping our feet by to see if it's a vibration thing or whatever. And I figure, well, heck, I've seen enough of these shows. I know what to do, right? So I said, if there's anybody here, would you please turn the flashlight on the count of 3? Mm-hmm. And I went 1, 2, 3, bang, flashlight comes on for 3 beats and then goes off.
Wow.
And then I said, can I say holy expletive now? Everybody kind of laughed. And then one of our mutual friends, John Frick, he checked the tapes later. And he's not sure because this wasn't a Class A EVP, but he thinks he heard a voice say, after I said, can I say holy now? Little baby.
Little baby. A little baby.
It's like somebody calling me a little baby because
like someone calling you pansy.
Shocked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're pansy. Wow, man.
Yeah, it might have been me.
Wow. Wow.
Could be. I usually try and act macho in front of the chicks.
Yeah, exactly. Sounds like you're doing a great job.
When flashlights go on like that, it's a little freaky.
When the voice is from beyond the, anyway. Just go to workout. Just go to Planet Fitness workout.
Well, I'd like to talk a little bit about a gentleman. I actually, Emily, we should maybe talk about the ceremony we went down for.
Yes, right, yeah.
Which was very moving. And then toward the end, we can talk about Bill Edmondson.
Okay.
But Emily and I attended this was the third year they've done this in Point Pleasant. There was a memorial ceremony right down on 6th Street where the bridge used to empty onto. And it was pretty moving, really. What were your feelings about the ceremony, Emily?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was great. Well, maybe great's the wrong word for the occasion, but I mean, yeah, it was very moving. They had some great speakers that got up and said a few words, and especially this year with it being the 50th anniversary of the collapse, they had the the high school choir singing some Christmas songs.
Oh, nice.
They had some other people there singing some solo songs. They had was it the somebody from the Bridge Commission of West Virginia, I think, or who's a bridge inspector.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And he talked quite a bit about the impact that the collapse had on bridge safety, in general and all over the world, and how the Silver Bridge collapse actually prompted, major regulations that be put in place across the country and even, in parts of the world to make sure that, bridges are safe and this wouldn't happen again. And so out of something so tragic actually came some really good safety regulations that have affected all bridges built since then, and making sure that they get inspected regularly and we don't see something like this.
That's right. Something very positive came out of it. And the lady that started this 3 years ago was Carolyn Harris, who we mentioned before. She passed last year. She was one of the co-founders of the Mothman Festival, and she ran Harris Steakhouse, which was also known as the Mothman Diner. She tragically lost her little boy, Timmy, when he was 3 years old. He was crossing the bridge with his father, who was at the time Carolyn's ex-husband. So she wasn't there to read the names, and of course they read the names every year of the 46 people that died on the bridge. And that was a little tough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Now, this bridge, when this bridge went down, there was no bridge there for a couple of years?
Right. There was another one up river. Is it Ravenwood?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think it's Ravenswood.
They had to go way out of their way, several miles to get across.
If you happen to work on one side of the bridge and live on the other, you're in trouble.
That's tough, right?
I can see that making the economy around there a disaster.
I had some discrepancies here. Some sources said it was 38, some 37 vehicles went down on the bridge. But there's just south of town, on the south side of town, there's a river museum, which has reconstructed models of the river boats. It has the history of the area, the two rivers that come together, and it has a lot of history on the bridge, on the Silver Bridge. Well, I met a gentleman named Bill Edmondson there. He was one of the survivors that went down that night. He's 88. He was 38 when this happened. He was there at the ceremony, and this next day I had a great deal of time to talk to him. So he told me his story, and it's an incredible story. He was driving a truck from the West Virginia side to the Ohio side. He was hauling some material to Detroit for one of the tire companies, some material used in construction of tires. And he's about halfway through the bridge. The 13th I-bar gives away, and the bridge starts to tilt sideways. So his truck is sliding toward the water. He grabs the wheel with his left hand to keep him from sliding. The truck gives way. He hits the water with such force he's thrown through the window, the passenger window.
Wow.
That breaks his arm. He showed us his arm, how he couldn't actually stretch it out. They had to put a pin in it.
Right.
So he was never able to. So he went down under the water, and this is just at sunset.
Okay.
And so it's, the water's going to be dark anyway.
Yep.
He goes down, he thinks, toward the bottom. The currents start to pull him up. That sounds funny at first, but it's not. His pants had come down, but were still on because of his shoes. So he's coming up to the surface. There's debris still falling into the water.
Oh,
it catches his pants and starts to pull him under again.
Whoa.
Fortunately, the pants ripped over his shoes. He comes to the surface, and the same material that he was hauling for these tires saved his life, because there's this big roll of stuff, and there's a slit in there in his right arm, which was still fine. I'm sorry, his left arm that was fine. Yep. He put through the slit. And so he was buoyant for a while.
Oh, wow.
And he says he looks up to the top of this thing, and there's a pigeon staring down at him. I mean, the things you notice when your life is probably some poor bird that lost his nest underneath the bridge.
Yeah.
So at the same time, a tugboat captain saw him, moved the tugboat in such a way to prevent him from moving downriver, and catches him with this material, and they pull him out of the water just moments before he would have probably died from hypothermia.
Right. with no pants.
That's right.
Wow.
But who cares?
Yikes. Wow, what a story. That's amazing.
We've all heard and read phenomenal stories about survival, but I don't think anyone's ever told me personally a story of that magnitude in person.
Wow.
Yeah, that is amazing.
Wow.
And you know what? How can you not think about that like every single night? That's got to be,
And he's from North Carolina now, and hats off to him for making the trip. His family brought him up to for this ceremony.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, man. Wow, what a story. That's excellent. But we had this ceremony. Is that Cobra rejoining us?
I am here.
Wow, he's here. Wow. Okay, we can breathe easy. Cobra's back. I really think that we should discuss somewhere along the line bringing the radio show on the road and go down to Point Pleasant, West Virginia for the Mothman Festival.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
So we'd have to raise. Now, how much money would we have to raise to do that? To really think about that now. Of course, we would go Juan-Juan, Cobra from this area. Okay. Right. We'd have to go down there. Oh, with Jeff, we'd have to bring the sound guy, Jeff, the editor. Get a Winnebago or something like that. Drive down there, just do a long drive overnight. Get to West Virginia, stay there for 3 days, set up the equipment and stuff. Break it down, come home. So it would be 6 days.
6 days. How do you figure 6 days?
If we drove down and drove back in one day.
Yeah, it's about a day drive, full day drive down to where they are in West Virginia.
Okay. Stay there 3 days. Stay there three and a half days.
Yeah, sure, right. Yeah.
And then drive back, and then just
a day back. So 5 or 6.
5 or 6. So anyway, that would do that for $3 grand, I bet.
I do have one more kind of an interesting
Excuse us.
note on this. There was another bridge collapse over the Elk River.
Okay.
Which in 1904, the Elk River is right near Charleston, and it's very close by. Mm-hmm. And this probably is a coincidence, but it was the same month and day, 12/15.
Oh, that's weird, man.
That is weird.
Wow, that's
now that there were a few people lost their lives. The loss of life wasn't nearly as bad. It was just a smaller bridge, but still to have a bridge collapse, 2 bridges on December 15th.
That's almost too freaky. But stuff like that happens, I mean, it could be just the strangest, weirdest coincidence ever, but still.
Yeah, 63 years later.
Yeah. Wow, that's strange. Wow. But anyway, getting back to that Mothman Festival, I mean, you're the ones who told us that it's really groovy down there. People really have a good time.
It is beyond groovy.
Yeah, beyond groovy. Okay.
Groovy will lose all its meaning when you get down there.
Wow.
It's my favorite weekend of the year.
Wow.
It really isn't it? Isn't it like Christmas for adults? Really?
It is.
Oh, holy cow!
Now you may want to put more money in your budget because of all of the vendors.
Oh,
that's right. But Steve and I don't even want to think about how much money we spend on books and T-shirts every year.
Right.
Well, and the Mothman Museum, which is well done. Emily and I kind of get the fever when we get down there. T-shirts, like she said, books. There's all anything that says stamped Mothman, even if it was made in China, you got to have it.
Huh? How about that? Mothman.
But really, it's got everything. It's got speakers.
Yep.
From not just about the Mothman, but all kinds of aspects of the paranormal.
Right.
It's got this phenomenal museum.
And where were people? I know that people like walk up and down the street, and it's a very kind of casual atmosphere. But where are people congregated most of the time? At the museum.
Right. Well, there's the museum, and there's the old, the historic Low Hotel.
Okay.
And right there, on one of the side streets is where most of the vendors are.
Okay.
And a lot of the speakers have their booths there now. This is really expanded, so they have stuff up and down the street. A lot of stuff for food and blow up aliens and what else do they have there, Emily? Mothman pancakes.
You can't go unless they have blow up aliens. I'm not going.
And
please.
There are plenty of blow up aliens.
Wow.
And you've got a guy walking around in a Mothman suit. There's usually a guy in a Bigfoot suit there.
Yeah.
You got Ghostbusters. You got the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Oh yeah.
Oh man,
boy.
that's it. That's
Hillbilly ziplining.
Oh,
down
that's
Main Street.
excellent.
Yes,
Hey, listen, is there a bar room down there that is the place to go?
No,
Oh.
not anymore.
I thought they'd sponsor
that other
the
place
show.
burned down, I think. There's a big. Was there still a vacant lot there? Where that one was?
The
I
bar
think the
room
building
burnt down.
collapsed.
You probably drink a beer in a paper bag in the
Okay.
vacant lot.
Hold on, Steve. Are you saying the bar room burnt down?
Yes.
Okay,
I
Barbara,
thought
with
it collapsed.
Cobra.
Oh, maybe. Maybe it did. I thought. Anyway,
Let me ask Cobra. Let me ask
when
Cobra.
We weren't there, but what was the name of that place, Emily? Do you remember?
It was the Double D.
The double.
I think the Double D building is still there. And yes, I went into it once, and I can tell you don't really want to go in there. But I think it was the building next to it that fell down or burned down or something, and so it made
I have to ask
the Double D
Cobra a
structure.
question. I have to. Cobra, are you there?
I am, sir.
Okay. Didn't Barbara With's bar room burn down?
Yes, the
Superfan.
place that you got the T-shirts, but they, being the enterprising folks that they are, meet in the rubble and have just as good a time in the summer
They
months.
drink in the rubble.
Wow.
Something really appealing
Okay.
about that.
That
But
works.
I mean, don't you think it's kind of funny that we know people whose bars burnt down and at mysterious places?
Well, it's much like the bridges both going down on the same day, 63 years apart at the same time.
Yes.
I do like to add that the Double D Bar does have a Facebook page, just in case.
Are you sure you're on the right page there, Cobra? Really?
Really?
Mrs. Cobra could walk in and look at this page,
Yeah.
so yes, I'm at the correct page.
Okay. All right.
Well, we don't hang in the rubble. We hang with the rabble.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
See?
Hey,
You
cha-ching,
see about
baby,
Switch?
right there.
Rabble rouser.
Yeah. Yep. He comes through all the time. Thank you, Switchy. So
My
anyway, boy, I hate to do this, but it's time to check the time. Okay. Oh, yeah, we got to go. So anyway, hey, thanks very much for joining us, you two. It's always entertaining and informative, as always. Now, you'll be able to write off the trip on your taxes, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. If you have any questions, Al, the UFO mechanic, is also Al, the UFO tax preparer. So,
Yeah, there you go.
yeah.
Yeah.
He wears two hats. So anyway,
Yeah.
Cobra, thank you as always.
Thank you, sirs
Okay.
and lady.
All right, and be sure to listen to what is it? I'm sorry. What is the report? Griffin report.
Task Force Griffin.
Task Force.
And I understand he's got a real dynamic show coming up sometime.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. Thank you, Switch.
Well, thank you, Switch.
Wow. Thank you, Switch. So anyway, thank you, Cobra, and Juan-Juan.
We know you're hearing we know you're getting the messages,
Yes.
Juan-Juan.
Good luck
Check
with your
in when you can.
Yep. With
The
your secret
chair
mission.
is against the wall.
Again,
The chair
there's
is
the code.
against the wall.
Uh-oh.
There's the code.
Get your decoder ring.
Yeah. Right. And
That's a reference to a movie that was very popular, Red
Okay.
Dawn. That was one of the
Okay,
things
yeah,
they
great
said when
movie,
they were
yeah.
passing out the
super
code.
duper. Al Renato, thank you very much for.
Anytime. I'm
Yeah. Do
always
we have to
available.
drive over any bridges driving home?
Yeah, the causeway you have to go home over.
No. We'll go.
That's
We'll
not
go the
much
back
of a
way.
bridge. That's not much of a bridge.
Okay, we'll go the back way.
And then you have the chain bridge if you decide you're going to, if you're not going to do that.
Chain bridges scare me at this point.
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
heard
really.
too much about chain bridges not making it.
So anyway, thank you everyone for bringing the energy to the show. And until next week, this is Mack Maloney for the gang saying thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon. And until then, be safe, be happy, and bye-bye.